Yeah, I'm actually going to kick us off and then hand it over to Mariah to talk about the tips and tricks for planning a lobby meeting. But I know there's probably a lot of folks on here that have already done a lobby visit of some kind, whether, on the Green New Deal or some other issue. Go ahead and raise your hand if you've done that before. I'd like to see how many people who I'm talking to here, see what kind of experience we have. If you've ever met in person with your elected official, raise your hand, or you can chat in one like we did earlier. Could be senators or representatives. See how many folks? Lots of people. Okay. Great. Keep raising your hand. So basically a lobby meeting is a conversation. It's a conversation that we have with our elected officials about issues that, mean a lot to us. And in that, it's not just us talking to them, but it's a conversation where they're talking to us back and giving us information that we need. That's really important. And it's also a place for us to ask, have a really direct ask for the elected official. Those are kind of like the two really important principles of a successful lobby meeting: is to have a conversation, collect information, and to make a direct ask. And so during this training, we're going to talk about ways to make this the most successful lobby visit that you can. And this is kind of based on our experiences doing these types of meetings, some tips and tricks that we've kind of gleaned from our experiences. And Mariah is going to talk about, and it looks like from this poll that at least 31 of you want to do a lobby visit, so that's awesome. So tune in for this training. And a couple dozen people have done a lobby visit before, so that's great. Feel free to chat in any experiences or best practices that you have that you can offer that you think would be helpful as well. We'd love to see that. So lobbying is really important. They're elected officials, they're responsible to us, but it's also our job to show up and let them know where we stand, and we need to do that early and often. By definition, it's, us trying to attempt the actions, the policies, or the decisions of officials in office. It's also really helpful to educate leaders on issues. We can't always go into somewhere and expect them to be an expert. So this is a way for us to kind of act like an expert. But when you don't need to be an expert, you just need to be able to share why it's important to you. But you could also bring, some knowledge into the room that might not be there before. So that's important too. And in the context of a campaign, we like to use lobby visits in the beginning of the campaign as kind of like reconnaissance and gathering information. We use them in the middle of a campaign to check in with our elected officials, to hold them accountable to, the outcomes of our first visit and to keep moving them along. And then we use it at the end of a campaign as well to, again, hold them accountable, making sure they're following through on their promises, or to get commitments that we haven't yet gotten from them. A lot of we're doing these visits, but it's important to know, and it's really important for us to continue doing this work because our opposition is also doing similar work that we're doing. And so, we have this negative connotation of lobbying because we associate it with the black hats and the fossil fuel industry, like walking the halls of Congress trying to get what they want, kind of the dirty way. But it's important for us to counteract the work that they're doing. And we do that by bringing people to the table. And so that's what we're hoping to do. And so we thank you for, signing up to have a lobby visit to help us, counteract the influence that money has in politics and to show the people power that is clearly behind the Green New Deal. And Mariah is going to take it from here and go through some really specific ways to make it really successful.
All right, well, thank you, Britton. So now that Britton has gone over a bit why we lobby, I'm just going to do a short training about how we go about lobbying and just give you some step-by-step instructions. So throughout this training, there are 4 principles that you should remember. So first of all, have an agenda. Second, you want to tell your personal story. And third, you need to have a clear, distinct purpose or ask that you want your decision maker to respond to. And fourth, you need to give them a chance to respond to your ask. So before your lobby meeting, you need to start planning ahead. And obviously the very first thing you have to do is get that lobby meeting scheduled. So you can find the right office or phone number to call by going to your member website at either senate.gov or house.gov. And a lot of members actually have like a request meeting link on their website, which I have found like really helpful. Actually, that's how I've scheduled all of my meetings with lobby meetings with members of Congress. So to get a meeting on the books, you can either call or use that link, but just keep following up. And if you don't hear back within a day or so, just, be pleasantly persistent. It's always a great, thing, because sometimes they can be a little bit slow to respond. So once you have the meeting scheduled, go ahead and start reviewing your legislator and district information. So this is a really good time to start putting like power mapping skills to use, or like I've also heard it called an influence chart. So things like that. It's really start to kind of get some background information about that member of Congress. And then the day before the meeting, you just want to check in with whomever you have the meeting scheduled with, just to confirm the meeting time as well as how long you have to meet with them. And then before the meeting, you also want to start mapping out your strategy, because it's a really fun time to strategize about how you're going to approach it. So the first thing you can do is start preparing talking points and really think about like 1 or 2 sort of important top lines that you want to cover, but that you don't have to have this completely written out. You just want to have a general agenda to go over with your ask written down verbatim. So when you write your agenda, think about things like, how does this impact you personally? Why is this issue important? Why should the legislator care? And what do you want them to do about it? So I lobbied Representative Diana DeGette from Metro Denver several times. And so when we've met with her, we've talked about, how people are really affected by the air pollution in Denver from fracking and refineries that emit hydrogen cyanide in the city. I mean, we told her that we are, worried because Colorado is projected to become a dust bowl with climate change. And so we let her know, like made it very clear that our expectations of her were for her to become a real leader on the issue and actually champion the Green New Deal, not just sort of a tacit endorsement. We wanted her to be kind of out there in front, championing it. And once you do that, then you need to decide your ask and make it relevant and direct. So we asked her, if you won't endorse the Green New Deal today as a show of good faith, will you sign the No Fossil Fuel Money Pledge? And then you also need, as you prepare for this meeting, you need to decide who you want to attend the meeting with you. So when lobbying for the Green New Deal, I've strategically invited groups that are focused on economic or racial justice issues and not just strictly environmental groups. And this actually had a really big impact because with it being such a broad coalition, it really, brought like to the fore about how the Green New Deal is not just about climate change, it's also about remedying social and economic inequity. I should also decide rules that people should play during the meetings. So you need someone to do intros, someone to make the ask. You want to have a timekeeper and a note taker. And it's always really good for the note taker to be recording, so that way you can get any responses from the legislator on the record. And it's really easy to use something like Facebook Live or something like that. And then people can watch it later. You also want to have materials to leave behind, like fact sheets or news articles or even scientific studies that support your position. And it's also good to bring petitions or letters from constituents who are maybe unable to attend the meeting itself. And then afterwards, you want to make sure that you follow up with a member of Congress or their staff just by sending them an email thanking them for taking the time to meet with you. And it's also a good time to provide them with any additional information if you said you would. So after this call, we're going to be sending out a lobby toolkit, which will give you lots of good information, and we'll also have a sample lobby meeting agenda for you to use. So I highly recommend using this, and it'll have everything you should cover during the meeting. And it's really good to plan out because I've lobbied with groups as big as like 25 people and groups the size of with 5 other people. And you have to plan out your meeting so you can allow everyone the chance to share their 30-second story of self, because that is the most powerful thing you can use. And you also want to make sure you plan to make your ask in the middle of the meeting, so you have plenty of time to do everything you set out to do, and they also have plenty of time to respond. And then as you close and thank them for meeting with you, also make sure that you set up clear follow-up steps. And then there's just kind of a number of do's and don'ts to use when lobbying legislators to keep in mind. So first of all, and this is so important, be courteous to any legislative assistants or staffers you speak with, because you really don't want to alienate them by being hostile, and they could potentially become an ally of yours. In fact, I've had that happen when lobbying Diana DeGette. In fact, I'm on very good terms with her staffer, which makes it a lot easier to schedule more meetings in the future. So yeah, always be nice to the staffers. And next, you want to make sure you stay on topic. So keep in mind, it does happen that sometimes a member of Congress or their staff might derail the conversation. And I mean, I've personally had this happen when I had people show up to the lobby meeting who I did not invite, and they started trying to talk about, methane emissions and other things. And as long as you're aware of it, it's very easy. You can just gently steer the conversation back and say, we're here to talk about the Green New Deal. Also, make sure you follow the 50-50 rule. So, like most conversations, you want to be speaking half the time, as well as listening to what they are saying the other half. Ask questions. So your first question should always be asking your legislator, what do they know about this issue? Because you can't assume that they are experts or they know very much about it. Also, like we said earlier, leave any information that will be useful. Bring news articles that you maybe have great statistics that, again, back up what you're saying. Anything that's useful, go ahead and bring. You always want to say you are either a constituent or representing other constituents if you're not in the district. Also, be flexible, because sometimes offices are really small and some meetings have to be held in the lobby or a hallway or a conference room in a different building. So that's okay. Just be aware of that and try to be flexible about time and location and time if you can. Also, so don'ts. Here are some don'ts. So don't make assumptions about your legislator's knowledge on any particular issue. And also, you don't have to try to be an expert and memorize a lot of facts, because your biggest asset is actually sharing your personal story and how it impacts you and why you care. And you can emphasize that you are a constituent or a representative of constituents, so the legislators are actually beholden to you. And also, don't get argumentative, so don't need to go into he said, she said. And also, don't get discouraged if the first meeting did not go well. I've actually found it really helpful to have intentionally plan an initial meeting with a staffer, so we can really sort of relay all of our concerns, and they will then give those notes to the legislator. And then I like to schedule a follow-up meeting with the legislator themselves, so they will be sort of caught up on what we are concerned about, and then we can really understand what is preventing them from acquiescing to our asks. And it's okay to meet multiple times, in fact, because you can sort of, as Britton said, you can really sort of build ground and or continue to gain ground as you meet. You're not gonna, you don't have to be upset if you don't get everything you want in the first meeting. And then lastly, make sure you are early, not late. A lot of legislators have really tight schedules. So yeah, make sure you are there with plenty of time if you can. And yeah, so that's some of our tips and tricks for lobbying legislators. And now I'm going to pass it over to Jenny, who's going to do our Q&A.